So it's a beautiful Friday. We're starting the weekend, but we're going to jump into yet again another Transformer Slag podcast Patreon listener question. If you want to be part of the Transformer Slag podcast and be part of its Patreon, help support the podcast, let us know we're doing a good job. Let us know we're doing a good job over here, that we're not wasting our time educating the Transformer world on all the craziness that's going on and all the news and everything. Patreon.com/Protoman. Check the pinned comment or the description below. What does it get? You get your name in the end credits scroll at the end of every segment moving forward. Gets you access to the Transformer Slag Patreon Discord, where we break the news, we take apart the news, we share deals, we have all kinds of crazy stuff going on in that Discord. I love the Discord. And of course, the Patreon listener question. Everyone wants to ask a Patreon listener question. Here's a really good one by T-Formers 2002. And it's one that I feel like I've answered this question in the past, like in person at little round group discussions at BotCon and stuff like that back in the day. But I don't think I've ever discussed it ever publicly or had it recorded. And it's a really good one because it's a real eye-opener in education, because it's something very important to Transformers. So let's jump into that. So T-Formers 2002 asks, "Hi Proto, I got a Patreon question for you. So nowadays, the 1986 movie is widely considered the best Transformers movie of the franchise. However, back in the day, it didn't do very well in the initial box office. Would anything be changed today that would have done better? Once again, keep up the great work and everything you do for the fandom, T-Formers 2002. Well, thank you, T-Formers 2002. There's two parts to this. I'll get into what I would change afterwards, but the problem with the 1986 movie is not the 1986 movie. I hate it when people say the movie didn't do well because Optimus Prime died in it and stuff like that. Let me tell you something. Ticket sales are made before you go to see the movie. It's not like you can leave the theater and ask for a refund afterwards because Prime died. It doesn't work like that. People go into the theater, if the movie's good or not, it doesn't make a difference. People just weren't going to see it. And I'll tell you why. And here's what was going on. And the big thing that people constantly ignore all the time when it comes to the Transformer 1986 movie, Transformers the movie. What was the competition? And what was the environment at the time? Well, we're going to start first actually with the environment. So Transformers the movie is an animated movie, an animated cartoon movie on the big screen. And when you think of successful animated movies on the big screen, what do you think of? You think of Disney and everything that's going on and all the millions that Disney makes. Well, here's a little spoiler for you. In the 1980s, Disney was dying. They were not doing well. So if Disney, with their animated movies were not doing well, what's this robot movie going to do? I'll give you a little bit of a history lesson here. Fox and the Hound came out in 1981 for Disney. It was the last time they do really good money on their cartoons and their live action animation, their animated picture silver screen movies. The second you get into 1985, they did The Black Cauldron. It was the first time they lost money, big money. They lost a ton of money. $20 million they lost on the Black Cauldron in 1985. People from between 1981 and 1985 stopped going to watch cartoons in the movie theaters. Why? Because cartoons started to get better at home. You're talking 1982, the renaissance of G.I. Joe, He-Man. You know, we're not talking the old era of Hanna-Barbera and like the 50 million Scooby-Doo clones that were going on back then. Now we're talking He-Man, we're talking G.I. Joe, we're talking Transformers, Robotech, and I could go on and on and on, all the stuff that was going on there. And it was just absolutely nuts that kids on a Saturday were more looking forward to just watching Saturday morning cartoons than getting into the car and parents spending money on 2 hours of content. Not to mention in 1985, slowly but surely, the VHS market was starting to become a thing, and people were just better off, hey, why don't we just rent a movie and then watch it all at home as a family together instead of getting 4 individual tickets or more. The cartoon and family entertainment market in the big screen was dying on a vine. And the Black Cauldron really showed that when Disney lost $20 million, so much so that Disney in the 80s started to pivot to live action. Tron did okay for them, but it wasn't that great. But they really started to focus on live action, and it was Touchstone Pictures, which is an offshoot of Disney, that literally kept that company alive in the 80s. Literally, if you look at Disney's output in the 80s, it was live action through Touchstone Pictures. And it was like Who Framed Roger Rabbit in 1988 by Disney and Touchstone Pictures that really saved that company. And in 1989, in November, literally the end of the 80s, going into the 90s, Little Mermaid came out and started the Disney Renaissance, because then Little Mermaid happened, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, we're off to the races. So just to give you a bit of a perspective, it was not good for cartoons. If you were a kid and you were going to watch a cartoon, you weren't going to go to the movie theaters to see it. The PG era of stuff was not tasty for kids if they wanted to watch a cartoon. So Transformers was already snake bit there by being a cartoon on the big screen instead of the small screen. Number two, and this is very important in movie, and all these studios do this still to this day, they pay attention to who's going to be on the marquee with them and be able to avoid, so they could get some of that, sweet ticket action. Because when you go to see a movie, you don't see 3 movies in one day. You go to the marquee, you pick one, you dedicate yourself to it, and that's your weekend. And you're not coming back until the week after, if that's even the case, if you're someone who's going every weekend. So what was Transformers up against? You went to the movie theater. You and the family. You're the son, you're the daughter, you have your mom, your dad, whatever. You have your brothers, your sisters. It's August the 8th on a Friday, 1986, or August the 9th, 1986 on the Saturday, or August the 10th, 1986 on a Sunday, that weekend of the debut of the movie. You look up at that marquee, and what was there? Oh man, I'll tell you what was there. Number one, you had Top Gun, which was just finishing up its run. It came out in May, and it was still making big box office numbers. I look at the weeklies here because I have all the numbers here of the box office numbers, and Top Gun was still making mad money all the way in August. Then you had Karate Kid, which was already on its way out. Karate Kid 2 specifically, the sequel, and it was also making crazy money, even all the way in August. And it would be 2 more weeks that Karate Kid would be out, Karate Kid 2, that then it would finally get off the marquee, but it would even still be there 2 weeks after Transformers' debut. It was making such big numbers. And then you have, here's a big movie, Aliens, the sequel to Alien, had come out just 2 weeks prior to Transformers the movie. And it was a box office bonanza and a cultural phenomenon, and it was making insane money too. And then you got Cobra, Stallone movie. It did okay. But it was a Stallone movie, action movie, not exactly something the kids were getting excited to see. It wasn't Rambo, it wasn't Rocky. It was Cobra, one of Stallone's lesser-known movies. But you look at that lineup already, and you're like, man, that's some tough competition. You're gonna be standing there, and you're not gonna go see Top Gun or Karate Kid 2 or Aliens. And then debuting with Transformers that same weekend was Stand By Me, which, for people that aren't familiar, Emmy nominated, 2 Golden Globes, Corey Feldman, Will Wheaton, huge box office smash, made tons of money for them on a small budget. And this again, a PG movie that would have went well with Karate Kid for the PG movies. So if you're a kid and you're standing there, and it's like, I could go see Karate Kid, because Karate Kid 1 was great, so Karate Kid 2 is going to be great too also. Or you're going to go see Stand By Me, which, by the way, did very well, mostly due to word of mouth, because people were saying how great a movie it was. It didn't do well in its opening, but following days afterwards, the numbers exploded because of word of mouth, and it became a number 1 after just a couple of weeks. Or if you were that kid who wanted to see Top Gun or Aliens, it was a stacked marquee. And in a world where already kids weren't watching cartoons, and if they tried to convince their parents, hey, let's go watch Transformers. Oh, you can watch Transformers at home. It's a cartoon. You would want to go see a live action, big budget Hollywood movie. That's what they were trying to sell you when you went to theaters. And then it didn't get any better for Transformers, because the following weeks after Transformers had made its debut, Crocodile Dundee came out and just absolutely exploded in pop culture. And then The Fly, directed by David Cronenberg, Jeff Goldblum, made on a shoestring budget of like $9 million that made $60 million in profit. people were just not going to see that movie because of all these Goliaths that were around it. Is Transformers the movie the best Transformer movie ever made? Easily. It's one of my favorite pieces of Transformer media ever made. It's up there with like Beast Wars and Animated and a few other things. Like it's absolutely awesome. But when you think about, it's not about us, the hardcore fans, but just the general populace going out to see movies. It was a tough time for cartoons. People already weren't going to watch Disney stuff. They weren't going to go see Disney. They weren't going to go see all kinds of little smaller animation stuff. The Great Mouse Detective, which also didn't do very great. Like, they weren't willing to do that stuff. But when you have Karate Kid, that was a sequel to a proven successful franchise, a kid rather go see that than Transformers. Or again, like I said, Stand By Me, had a good word of mouth. And then, look, Aliens. Come on. Aliens and Top Gun. I don't care what you say about Top Gun. It had a great soundtrack. And then Crocodile Dundee and The Fly afterwards in the following weeks. It was tough. It was not looking good. And that's why it didn't do well. The happy ending to this story, though, is that while the original 86 Transformers movie did not do well, and while Hasbro used the excuses, the death of Optimus Prime, that hurt the sales, and that's why people didn't want to go see the movie. No, you know what? Look, I'll be real. It was 1986. Transformers was already on its way out. The following year, certain Ninja Turtles would debut and completely rewrite pop culture in a lot of ways, too. So let's be real here. Some stuff has its time in the sun, but then it has to let other people get its time in the sun. Look, Transformers now is, in my opinion, is bigger than Ninja Turtles currently, from a pop culture standpoint. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, there was a time when Turtles came around in 87 and they were the most important thing for a couple of years. So Transformers was in a weird place. 86, it was already, it's already winding down. People aren't already watching cartoons in theaters, combined with the fact that the marquee and the stuff that was at the theater at the time when it was debuting was going to make it tough competition. It wasn't going to go well. But like I said, there's a light at the end of this tunnel. When VHSs started to become more of a thing and people were renting and people were buying, Transformers, the movie, 1986, has made millions and millions and millions of dollars in VHS and DVD sales that have more than made up for any kind of losses that would have existed back then, for sure. And that's pretty much it. I mean, if you look at how many times the home video releases of Transformers the movie comes out, like they do multiple releases, almost like every 5 years there's a new version of something. You can't say that about a lot of other big box office stuff. How many times have we seen like Stand By Me reissued or Aliens reissued every 5 years or Karate Kid or Top Gun? So in the end, Transformers won from a pop culture standpoint. Transformers ended up becoming bigger than Top Gun ever was or Karate Kid. Maybe not so much Aliens. I would say they're kind of on even footing, but they definitely won in the end. But initially, they were up against some freaking Goliaths of the movie industry, and that was going to be a tough one to win. And then let's get into specifically also, and this is very important, the second part of your question is how things would have been done differently. Hindsight is now 2021. How would it be done differently? Number one, how would it have been done differently back then? I don't think there's anything that could have been done differently. Again, all the other factors, it could have been literally Shakespeare, and instead it would have went from being something that didn't do well, that some people didn't like, to it didn't do well and one of those hidden gem, cult classic things. Who knows what it would have been, labeled as. But at the end of the day, it wasn't going to do well, regardless if it, in any shape or form. Didn't matter who it was, what was in it. It could have been Disney, it could have been anything. It wasn't going to be successful just because of the environment at the time. But if it came out today, I don't know. The thing is that today the movie-going audience is very weird. Like, they just still have a weird feeling for animation. Stuff like for Frozen, that did very well for them. It was a breath of fresh air. But I think that a Transformers animated movie coming out would have the same kind of weird returns. When I look at something like the Spider-Man live action movies, and then there's a considerable bigger drop when you look at Into the Spider-Verse, just because it's animation, tells me a lot about how they would receive a cell animated Transformer movie. And let's not even get into changing the script. I mean, why would we change the script? I mean, I think that it being darker and more interesting and being fresh was a good thing for the brand. If anything, it gave us new characters. It's not all the same stuff. Keeping Optimus Prime, making him the hero in the end, or he opening up the Matrix, I don't think that would have changed anything in terms of people going to see the movie. Because people went into that expecting Optimus Prime anyway, so those ticket sales didn't change one way or another, especially in a day where there is no internet. So today, I see that what would have happened was, if they would have wanted to do it, it would have been a direct-to-DVD thing or a Netflix special or something, and that would have been that. And the numbers would have been not as strong, or would have been, kind of midway, or it would be the numbers that we're getting with War for Cybertron and the Siege stuff and everything with Netflix. It's a different world. It's a different way that people consume things, and it's just how it is. Something like, look at Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is a worldwide phenomenon in the anime world, but when they bring those movies to theaters in dub, they do okay. They do okay, even though it's a worldwide phenomenon and everyone knows who Goku is and Dragon Ball, but yet they do okay. And that's just how weird the movie industry is, and how you can't really measure the true importance and value of something just because a movie doesn't do well in the theaters. It really, it's and not to mention today, sometimes I question the modern numbers, but that's a whole other discussion. Now, like a lot of movie theaters, they're kind of, I don't know, they're kind of fluffing their numbers and stuff, and they're very good at like donating hundreds of thousands of tickets to different groups so they could get tax write-offs, and then they could say, oh, look at all these numbers this movie did. So there's a whole bunch of other weird stuff that's going on there. But the point being is that I think that nothing could have really been changed. It was a weird time for animation, let alone Transformers. Transformers was on its way out anyways, and it could have been anything. Look, they did literally they did Ninja Turtles came out, and they did a live action movie. And that was the safer way to go. Now, there's no way we could have done a live action movie in 1986. Just the technology was not there. And Ninja Turtles was very lucky to have Jim Henson to do their live action, because it could have also gone very bad the opposite direction. But there's a lot to discuss here. But at the end of the day, I feel like I got across the key points, and it's stuff that I've brought up many times in the past. It just wasn't a good time. It just wasn't a good time to do a cartoon movie of anything, even if you're Disney. But I hope that answers your question. T-Formers 2002, I mean, it kind of sounds like a downer, but we won in the end. We won in the end. The movie is beloved by everyone today. We've had all these big box office, Michael Bay movies that have made trillions of dollars more than this animated one, but yet everyone still prefers the animated one over anything else. So that says a lot more than anything, that the numbers don't mean anything. All that really matters is the passion and what is there. So once again, if you want to be like T-Formers 2002 and be part of the Transformer Slag Patreon, be sure to check it out, patreon.com/protoman. Check the pinned comment, check the pinned description below, and be sure to join the podcast, support us, and let us know we're doing a good job here. And be sure to come by tomorrow, because it's Saturday night and it's the live stream, and there's a lot to discuss.